everybody. Welcome to another episode of Voices of Recovery. I'm your host, Michele Eich, and every week I interview somebody who has overcome a life-controlling issue with God's help. And this week I have two very special guests, Tyler and Jen Schmidt of the Lit Movement, and we're actually in the Lit House today, and we'll be talking about that, and I'm so excited. So some of you may remember that I interviewed Tyler and Jen separately. And if you didn't catch those powerful interviews, I will link them to my Voices of Recovery page for you to watch. But I've been wanting to interview them together because they're an amazing couple. They're doing great things for God, and I want you to hear their story. So let's just recap a little bit. Jen, can you give me the 30 seconds to 60 second, I won't time you, but just a rundown of your testimony. And again, I'll link that on my page. But
Yeah, so I used to identify as a lesbian. I thought that was my identity pretty much my whole life. Struggled with same-sex attraction, and from the ages of 18 to 25, acted on that, lived that out, and had an experience with God when I was 25 years old that ultimately led to me laying everything down, left my gay identity, lifestyle, everything to follow Jesus. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, and also you testified that drug and alcohol abuse kind of escalating during that journey.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for sharing that. Tyler, can you give us just the nutshell of your testimony?
Yeah, sure. So, drugs and alcohol was always a part of my life since an early age. I joined the service, went overseas, started to deal with anxiety, depression, and just drank. Was drinking alcoholically. Then I dabbled with heroin. Got a total of 4 DUIs, went to jail in rapid succession, and after a few years trying to get clean, I knew God was in the picture somewhere. So the last time I was locked up, I just started to cry out to God pretty consistently, and he answered back. I jumped into the 12 steps, and God just totally recalibrated my life, and all the desires in my heart started to manifest in my life, and God took control of my destiny and just kept pushing me forward to where I was in a position to help others and do his will. So here we are today.
Here we are today. Awesome. Well, it's so hard to condense 10, 20 years into a 60-second soundbite, but I encourage everybody to check out my page and listen to their full testimonies because they're amazing. Okay, so you both are individually getting set free. You're, serving God, seeking God, and then you meet. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about that? I want to know a little bit about your backstory before we get into how the Lit Movement was birthed.
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
All
I
right.
feel like we should be lighting some candles or something, like creating this. All right.
As soon as basically God moved in my life, I wasn't going to church for years, and I got this word from this prophet. He told me to find a church, start going to it. So that's pretty much how I think Tyler and I ended up meeting. We found out we were going to the same church, but we actually met through, it was City of Refuge in Hooven. It was like another branch of a nonprofit arm that Roseanne Moore started from Church on Fire. So just doing volunteer work there. We ended up meeting one night. He came down and was playing kickball with us and the kids. And found out he had a little crush on me.
Okay.
But at the time, I didn't want anything to do with anyone, especially men, at that point in my life. I couldn't even look at a guy like that. So we established a friendship. I said, you know what? I can't even look at you like that, but I'll be your friend. So we just started meeting up. We would go out to dinner and just talk for hours.
Nice.
And at the same time, I believe you were kind of coming out of just the whole alcoholic, drug abuse lifestyle. So he was kind of transitioning out of his lifestyle. At the same time, I was transitioning out of mine, and we were both like kind of met at that point where we were like, okay, God, we're down to follow you, and then we met.
Okay.
and had no idea at the time, obviously, we would
Yeah.
get married.
That's so
but-
cool that you started as friends and
Yeah.
just talked, and
Yeah,
that's a very important foundation to any relationship.
right, yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. So Tyler, your version of that?
Yeah, well, we met before I got clean, because I thought I could just volunteer a lot and go to church a lot and stay sober, which is totally not true. Well, for my life, it wasn't true. But in trying to do that, that's where we initially met, where I was, volunteering at this outreach thing. And I remember, having, a little crush on her, was trying to shoot my shot, and then I got locked up, and then I felt kind of humiliated, like what would she think? And then I came out, and I think after like a few months, like 6 months, then I reached back out, like, hey, my feet are on the ground, I'm pursuing God, and then we started to develop a relationship where we were both kind of stable, well, when I was stable.
Sure.
And then, that was probably over the course of 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then we had a year where we really didn't see each other. And then on the 5th year we reconnected, and
It's different that time around. Yeah.
Different.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And actually, I know when I was like, okay, I left all my friends, that whole community identity,
Right.
everything, I was immersing myself in a new surrounding of church friends, or whatever you want to call it, people
Mhm.
that would just, build me up in faith, right? He was actually the one who encouraged me to seek out healing like he was doing with the AA 12-step groups. He encouraged me
Okay.
to seek out a group, to connect with other people that basically shared the same experience with me that I could draw hope from. So
Right.
it was starting to work for him, so it was something that, he encouraged me in. So yeah, we stayed friends for those like 4 years, and like you said, in the 5th year, long story, but transformation, heart's desires, everything from just seeking a relationship with God, just my desires started changing, and then, to keep that story pretty short, just something was different,
Yeah.
and I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, I was confused at first, so I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Why am I feeling like this for Tyler? But,
Well,
yeah,
especially after
that was
everything you came out of,
good. Yeah.
it wasn't like you were gonna just jump into a relationship with a guy, and
Right.
you needed,
Or anyone, period.
we all, no matter what our
Yeah.
journey is, we need to get to a level of healing, because we tend to jump into relationships because like that person's gonna fix me,
Right,
or that person's going to complete me,
right.
right? And that's why we get into cycles of different people, because no one completes you and no one can fix you except for Jesus,
Right,
But when
right.
he's the foundation of that relationship, then you can build on that. So
Exactly, yeah.
that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, that was kind of, I know going into my journey with God, that's what I had told him, I'm believing you for this. I wanted a family, but I had no desire for men at that point,
Mhm.
period. And I thought, oh, this is never going to happen, but he gave me desire for one man. And that's,
Right.
it's contrary to what I thought I had to do at first, which was, oh, it's gay to straight. And it's like, no, it's just seek God in this season,
Exactly.
seek him. And just that period of celibacy,
Mhm.
I think God really just blessed that, and then he was able to, out of that time of seeking him first, then we connected,
Yeah.
so it definitely, it wasn't easy, but it was a time investment well
It
spent,
is,
I think,
it is.
so at least
Yeah.
it
For
has-
sure. God
yeah,
has to
it's that way.
heal your heart and prepare you, and
Absolutely.
yeah, he's gotta be that foundation. So, okay. So you guys have been married for about 3 years?
It'll be 3 years in December, yep.
Okay.
So
So we're
are
coming
right
up on
yep, coming
third
up on
year
that. Mhm.
anniversary. That's so exciting. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I know you guys are an awesome couple. And you're doing so many things. So you are now the Lit Movement, part of the Lit Movement. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is, but how did that kind of start? How did God plant that seed in your heart to basically go out and help people break free and find the freedom that you have?
Yeah, so early in my walk, I started mentoring in the courts with the same judge that locked me up, and it just that opened up a lot of doors of opportunity, and one of the doors that opened up was a job out on the east side working for a treatment center. And I think I worked there about 6 months, and they gave us access to funds to help individuals coming out of treatment or jail, and the funds was used for recovery housing, rent, and food. And so they gave me access to the jail out there, and I connected about 8 guys real quick in the course of about a month. And I thought, this is genius. You know, there's I think some parents out on the east side had a small group out there, and they raised a bunch of money, and they gave us access to this money to do this. And we just I connected a bunch of men out here to Price Hill, because a lot of people just don't have money when they burned all their bridges. So I thought this idea was genius. And it was just like, it was so organic for me to do that and connect men that just needed a little bit of a resource. So after a few months, something happened where one of the individuals I connected relapsed, and they said, we're pulling the funds to help these men because we feel like they need more treatment. They don't need recovery housing. And I thought, that's ridiculous. And so I quit the job and said, you know what, I'm going to take this idea and I'm going to build it out in Hamilton County. So I got with my pastor at the time, and we were walking around down for Red's opening day parade, and he introduced me to a couple people downtown. One of them was a cop, one of them was someone at the Office of Reentry, and the pastor kind of introduced me and said, hey, this is what Tyler's trying to do. This is, you know, what he's trying to help men in recovery, trying to get clean. And the guy looked at me and said, let's have lunch, because I can jump through all the red tape to get you in the jail.
Perfect.
And so right there, the door was open. The pastor agreed to talk to his elders and let me put the funds that I raised through the church so people could use it as a tax write-off. And then we got with my cousin, and he agreed to help us. He sowed a little seed into it, and he helped us throw our first event. And since it was the Shiloh Church on the west side, we called this program the Shiloh Sober Living Grant, and we raised, I think it was almost $30,000 in 6 months. And then over the course of a year, we just started connecting men and women with this. God opened all the doors for treatment centers, jails, and I think we were up to almost 90 or 100 people through that money. And what I found was that it was easy to connect people, but I thought, we should start a group. God gave me a vision to start like a group for some of these men that we were connecting to recovery housing. And so I feel like the Lord gave me a download on how to start this group, who to bring into the group, and it was staggered with half of the group was seasoned men in their faith, and the other half was just men coming straight out of jail or treatment. And so the group was about, I want to say, 8 or 9 men initially, and I just asked them if they would agree to do this for I think 8 weeks. And so the meeting was simple. I felt like the commonality we had was everyone was kind of working through the 12 steps in some fellowship, and everybody was seeking God, and it was a bunch of men that were early in their walk, but were hungry for God, and we just kind of had this discussion group where we'd share about our experience in the 12 steps, and we'd share about our experience, how God was moving through our week, and it was extremely powerful. And out of that, we started that actually in another recovery house, because at the time, Lit wasn't really established, and we had no housing of our own, so we started that out of another recovery house in the West End. And then the meeting just kind of blew up from there. It got real big, and a bunch of people started to attend, because I feel like a lot of men and women in recovery, the meetings are good and helpful, but a lot of people are more hungry for God. And want a pocket to be able to express how God's moving through their lives. In some of the recovery meetings, some people are a little more reserved, so this was like the perfect place for people to share like how God's moving through their lives.
Awesome.
So even after this group was established, I feel like the Lord gave me another revelation and told me to brand it. And at the time, we had someone in our group who had the nonprofit already written, the Shiloh Sober Living Grant funds we raised, we kind of funneled that into this lit movement nonprofit, and then we just started to brand and build out the logo, build out the website, and just kind of create what we were doing. You know, I also felt like the Lord gave me a download to capture it through video or media.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the first video that we captured kind of told the story
Right.
from the beginning. You know, from the Shiloh grant into how that evolved into a small group, and then how that evolved into the lit movement. And so, you know, after we kind of got the lit movement branded, I got the website, you know, got all our kind of ducks in a line, kind of organizationally. You know, we decided to do a launch party downtown on Fountain Square, and after we did this launch party and showed the video that we recorded, it was, I think a few days later, Block Ministries came to us and told us about a property they had, and they had grant money tied to the property, and if we helped get it renovated, that we could use it for what we wanted to. So it was definitely an answered prayer, and that's kind of where we started. We just got a lot of these men together with another ministry, and you know, it's kind of the room we're sitting in today. A lot of men helped build this out, paint it, install the cabinets, the lights, all this stuff, and it's so this is 3 floors. So
That's awesome.
a lot of men, you know, served in making this a reality. And that's kind of how everything kind of started, you know. And,
Right.
and after that, you know, the ministry just continued to stay blessed. We've had, I think, a total of like 4 properties gifted to us.
Wow.
And we actually sold 1, but we currently have
2 we actually were gifted, like now named.
Yeah.
But the other 2 still belong to Block, so.
Correct.
Just
Yeah.
clarifying.
yeah.
Okay,
there you
cool.
go.
Awesome. Well, that is amazing, Tyler. And, you know, I'm just sitting here thinking about your vision, right? You kind of like have this vision God plants in your heart, but it's so massive. It's like, how am I going to get the money? How am I going to get the housing? How am I going to get through the red tape and all of it? But as you start stepping out and as you start moving forward, God starts putting the pieces together, connects you with the right people at the right time. I mean, not one person can't do this alone. It takes, like you said on the video, it takes a community to help a community, and I would say it takes a faith community to help a community. So for those of you who don't know, LIT stands for
Living in Testimony.
Living in Testimony. So you are a living, walking, breathing testimony of what God has done in your life.
Correct.
And you give that hope to people because they look at you and they look at you, they look at me and say, wow, if God can do that in your life, he could do that in my life, right?
Mhm.
So in your testimony, which I really encourage people to go back and watch, Tyler, you mentioned that you were kind of like in and out of some rehabs, in and out of jail. What are the challenges that people face coming out of jail, trying to get clean? Explain that to the audience, because I don't think everybody fully understands that.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, for myself, and I see a lot of men and women do the same thing. You know, initially I thought, we'll just go to treatment, come out, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I can just live my life, work a job, and that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Treatment doesn't equate to healing. 90 days in jail, 3 years in doing a prison bit doesn't equal healing.
Mhm.
Some specific things that an individual does kind of manifest healing. You know, ultimately, you know, God's bringing about that healing, but it can come in different ways. And so I think it's really critical, no matter where you come out of, treatment, jail, detox, whatever, once you've been removed, when you come back to society, it's really critical to be around a group of, you know, supportive men or women, depending on the individual, during that healing process. You know, I tell a lot of my guys, it's like basic training, you know. A lot of people don't know how to shoot. People don't know how to do battle in the spirit realm. You know, a lot of people are spiritually mature, spiritually weak,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times, being spiritually weak or immature, you can be plagued with the world and its you know, negativity and evil spirits and drug addiction and depression and anxiety can manifest in your life. So the solution to that ultimately is God. But I tell my guys, like I said, is like it's like basic training, and you can train with the same sex, always. So if you're in recovery housing with a bunch of men who are like working the steps of being about that healing, it's very powerful because you're in a group setting and can motivate each other. A lot of guys are on probation, so it's very therapeutic in that sense. A lot of guys are getting their kids back, or attending meetings and going to church together. So a lot of guys are doing the same things together, and there's power in that, and so a lot of people will go back to the same environment where they went before.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people that people are like plants, and if you go back to the same soil you weren't growing in, you're not gonna grow.
Right.
But I said this in one of the last videos, the Lit House is like fertile ground.
Yeah.
When guys come here and they're planted in the middle of really powerful spiritual healing, they grow.
Mm-hmm.
The sunlight of the Spirit is shining in these
Yeah.
homes, and men just thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is critical being around a support system, and unity as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's hard to do at mom and dad's house. Sometimes that's hard to do at an apartment by yourself.
Mhm.
If you weren't keeping yourself accountable by yourself, you're probably not going to keep yourself accountable coming out of treatment by yourself.
Yeah.
If your mom and dad have no idea, if they're not in recovery, if they're not going hard for the Lord, they probably can't keep you accountable the way you need to be kept
That's
accountable.
good. Yeah.
In the way a drug addict, or someone coming out of same-sex attraction needs to be held accountable. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So whatever the vice is, it don't really matter. But
Mm.
it's critical that the people can identify with you in the sense of how to keep you accountable.
Yeah.
And
It's so good.
that's huge. And a lot of treatment providers like suggest these things. It's just people think they know what they're doing.
Mhm.
And so another thing I always tell my guys is like, as long as you're open-minded and willing to listen and apply suggestions to your life, you will keep growing. It's when you think I'm good and you don't take
Yeah.
the suggestions and apply them to your life that you stop growing. So
Yes.
really, if you don't know nothing and you're strung out in bondage, or you're gonna do treatment or whatever, whoever hears this, it's really as simple as this. Find you somebody who has an encounter with God, who's walking spiritually strong, and who's found victory in whatever area, and submit to them. And as long as you listen to the suggestions and apply them to your life, you will keep growing.
Right.
And that's discipleship 101 right there. So
That's
as
so
long
good.
as you're open-minded, willing to listen and apply the suggestions to your life, you will continue to come out the pit in which you dug and find yourself. Period.
I can't pick up that mic and drop it, but just pretend I did, because that was amazing. That was a mic drop. Okay. Thank you so much, Tyler. That was so good. Do you have anything to add to that, Jen?
I don't even know what else to say.
Except for good job, honey.
Yep. And I guess the only thing I would say in my case, it probably wouldn't be good for me to be around a bunch of women right out trying to come out of same-sex attraction, overcome that. But it's about the only thing I would differ on that.
You're with the guys all the time, so you're
Yeah, I had to hang around men
Yeah.
first for sure. But
interesting.
anyways, minimal stuff. So
Wow. Okay. So you have a guy who, or a woman who is incarcerated. They're gonna come out of jail. They want a new life, right? It's like, I don't want to go back there. I need to make some changes. They walk out of prison. You probably got a dope boy on the counter or on the corner, right? Giving free samples.
Right.
You've got a record, so getting a job is a challenge.
It's not a challenge anymore.
Right, and then housing. So,
Yep.
So talk a little bit about that.
Getting a job. Let me just clear for the record here. Getting a job as a felon is the easiest thing to do right now.
Awesome.
Period. No matter
Okay.
what your felony is. The only thing we had a guy who had a crazy record, and it was recent, and it just took us maybe an extra week to get him a job. So to get a job as a felon is simple.
Awesome.
People just set themselves up and think that it's hard. It's not hard. And so if someone's operating with humility and is willing to take a job that doesn't pay a ton as a starting point, I've always seen people elevate. I've seen so many people with felony records, crazy felony records, who elevate their way to like GM status. So
Beautiful.
God makes that happen. If you're
Amen.
walking in humility and you can take a simple job and grow
Mhm.
from that, that's what it's about.
So you guys are providing resources, you're providing a community, you're providing accountability. Those are all huge. And I just listened to somebody give a teaching about, we all talk about spiritual maturity, right? Wherever you are in your walk with God, you want to grow. That's absolutely true, whether you are in recovery or not. But there are two shortcuts to growing spiritually. I mean, you got to walk it out with God. You got to be in the Word. You got to be in prayer. You're in a relationship, and that takes time to grow. But there are two shortcuts. One is to have a mentor, and one is to get a prophetic word from God. And I could preach on both of those, right? So you are providing that mentor, and you're talking to these guys, and if they can be teachable and listen to you, it's not like, oh, well, Tyler, you don't understand. Like, you don't know what I've been through, or you don't understand the challenges. You've walked through it. You know them very well. You're not just some PhD giving advice. You've lived it. You're walking it. You found victory in it, and now you can pour that into other people. That's so beautiful. Okay, awesome. So I was poking around the Lit Movement website, and you talked about the importance of the community, the Word, and discipleship, and then you also mentioned the 12 steps, but I'm not sure everybody understands what that means. The 12 steps are discussing Celebrate Recovery, the 12 steps that go through healing, right?
Yeah, the 12 steps are exactly the same as they are in AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, exact same work.
Okay.
So, in a nutshell, if you don't know, it's basically admitting that you got a problem, being open-minded to believe that a power greater than yourself can help you. So maybe a mustard seed of faith, and then surrendering your life over to God in the form of self-examination or inventorying your life. So looking at the wreckage of your past, and then basically going back and clearing up all the wreckage of your past, and then continue through prayer and meditation. And then the last step is to disciple somebody or take somebody through the steps. So it's basically biblical principles in a 12-step form that includes self-examination, prayer, and reconciliation through going back to the people and places of your past and seeking out reconciliation with that.
Yeah. Well, it isn't easy, but it's possible with God, and God helps us walk through those things. And it can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but it's so important to get freedom and to get healing. And not only you have God walking you through, but you're in a community of believers who want wholeness and healing on recovery, and it's so critical in the walk. Right. Awesome. Okay. So we talked a little bit about vision when you first started talking, and you were kind of sharing what God had placed on your heart, Tyler, and how you kind of took the steps, and then God put the pieces together. How important is it for people in recovery to have a goal or a vision, something that they're moving toward? Let's talk to Jen about that, and Tyler, you can weigh in as well.
I just know for me personally, I can't speak to everyone else's situation, but having a goal or a vision, something I was setting my mind to, and it's gonna look different in different seasons of your life, right? So if you're just coming out of jail or treatment or whatever, it might look like, okay, I just need to find a place to live, or it's like basic stuff, right? Or find a sponsor or whatever. Like for me, it was, I set my goal was, when I left everything, I stopped using all drugs, and obviously decided to leave that lifestyle. I don't know if God dropped this in my spirit, but that vision, that dream of, okay, God, if anything's possible with you, I know you have the power to transform my mind, the way that I think, how I see women. And so I believed, I wasn't going to let anybody else tell me otherwise, that it wasn't possible, that you can't pray the gay away, whatever. Just all this negativity that I heard. I had to believe God and take him at his word. So I fixed my my eyes on that. Like, okay, God, you're gonna get me to this point of healing,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna get to that point to where I don't struggle with lust with every single woman that I see. I'm
Mhm.
gonna get to that point to where you're gonna give me healthy desires.
Right.
And so, I think having that, because it took years to get to that point,
Mhm.
and a lot of torment, a lot of struggle spiritually, dreams, torment, lust, I mean, battling, day
Mhm.
in, day out, on my face, crying out to God,
Yeah.
crying, bawling, it wasn't easy, but having that promise, that seed in my heart
Yeah.
of knowing that if God is true, and he's shown himself to me already
Mhm.
in my life, shown himself as true, then I know that I can take him at his word. If he said anything is possible, well then I'm gonna believe you for this, because you wouldn't tell me to do it, that to transform my mind, right?
Right.
Be renewed by the transformation of your mind, or transforming of your mind, if it wasn't possible.
Exactly.
So I fixed my mind on that thing and
Yeah.
did whatever I had to do to just clear out the distractions, right?
Girl.
So
Yes.
and that's not easy either. And what I mean by that is relationships,
Yeah.
I had to recognize the patterns in my life, what had always taken me out, what had always tripped me up, what had
Mhm.
always caused me to go around the same mountain, what had always pushed me to want to use drugs or alcohol.
Right.
And a lot of it for me was I was looking for love, and I was trying to get emotional needs met through people.
Yes.
And so I recognized that I needed to clear all the weeds. That's why we were just friends, and I just decided to focus solely all my time and my attention to my relationship with God. Because if I couldn't get
Amen.
that relationship right, I
Yes.
thought there's no other relationship that's ever going to work out if I can't get that right.
Amen.
So having that seed planted just in my heart, seeing that, okay, you said anything's possible with you, God. You're gonna transform my mind. I know it, and I'm believing you, and I'm gonna stick to it. And it was tough, but
Yeah.
having that just to hold on to, setting that goal, that dream, that vision, and just striving day in and day out. Like, if I wouldn't have had that, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
They wouldn't have the promise of His word. So.
Yes. That's so good. You, Jen has this tendency to drop like 10 nukes on me, and then I'm like, I gotta get to nuke 1, 2, 3. But one of the things that you said that was so powerful is clearing the distractions. Because you have got to hear from God, you've got to get in God's word, you've got to trust Him, and there are so many distractions in this world right now.
Right.
And that word is for everybody, whether you're in recovery or not, because, like you said, if God told you to do it, then it's possible. Because God's not going to tell you to do something that's not possible.
Right.
And all things are possible with Him, so.
Right.
When-
Whatever
awesome.
you're struggling with, right? It doesn't
Exactly.
matter. It's that if you're believing God for something, okay, I'm gonna fix my eyes on that, and we're going hard.
Yeah.
I can't let everything else get in my way. Same thing with recovery, and I'm sure he'll talk about that
Right.
too. But
For sure.
in regards to specifically the 12 steps, drug and alcohol recovery,
Yeah, because it's
Same.
hard. You've got to have the vision or the goal in mind. It's like you're training. You finally run the race and you win the race. To win the race, it's not easy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So Tyler, can you weigh in a little bit on the vision?
Yeah, so I think there's, two kinds of visions. Someone can have a vision coming into this house that they're gonna, get a job and get their family back, but also I feel like there's God-given visions.
Yeah.
A lot of
So true.
how my life has gone for the majority of my walk has been directed by a God-given vision.
Mm.
But what's unique about my God-given vision is it always correlates with the desires of my heart. So I always had a desire to help individuals, and God's bursting things and giving me vision for things concerning the lit. But also, I always wanted to be a high school teacher. Even before we met, I was like, before I got clean, I was telling my brother, like, I'm gonna marry Jen Molman, So I had these desires and these goals and visions in my heart that I wanted to do, and I shared this recently. Almost every desire in my heart is manifested.
Wow.
From my marriage, I always wanted to teach in Shanghai. I got offered a teaching job in Shanghai last June.
Wow.
I was going to be a high school teacher. I was in my master's, to graduate, and then God gave me another opportunity, and I pivoted because I thought it was awesome that God opened all the doors for me to be a high school teacher. And when I about got there, I was like, I have an opportunity to do something greater to be more effective, and I pivoted and then did that and got a really good job doing what lines up with the ministry direction I'm going. So I just share that because it don't matter what it is. I think God gives you these desires of your heart when you're pressed into Him. If it's a job, opening your own business, traveling, what kind of house you're living, whatever. And I feel like like with the distractions thing, if you can kind of keep the distractions out and stay locked into God for a season, He will birth all these things out of your life and give you the opportunity to say, here, do you want to go to Shanghai? Do you want to marry this woman? Do you want to, you know what I'm saying? And you can kind of take what you want. Obviously, I didn't take every desire in my life, and I'm not operating all now, but they've all been handed to me. God has handed them all to me. But, I guess we'll call an audible here. So with the lit vision though, recently, it was initially like God was birthing this thing, and as it was being birthed, we were kind of calling it and developing it for what it was going to be. You know what I'm saying? I knew we wanted to help people, and I knew we wanted to be a part of housing and all this, but it was like God kind of birthed houses, and we developed them and got teams and leaders and kind of constructed this thing as it was being birthed. And as of now, we're getting ready to finish this third house. Probably we're within days of finishing it.
Awesome.
And it's going to be amazing. It's looking really nice, but in my heart currently, the last big thing in my heart vision wise is like a big facility, like a lit hub where we have a housing component. I see like a coffee bar. I see meeting space.
Better be a coffee bar.
I see, offices, and it's like I can see it. It's in my heart.
Right.
And just like I'll share this. Is pretty profound. So we were in one of the lit meetings. This was probably almost a year ago, and I told the group, it was probably about 15 men, and I said the Lord is speaking to me. He's telling me I feel like he's about to rain houses, and it was literally like a week later, we were gifted the two family on Hamilton Avenue that we're renovating right now. I think it's been about a year we've been kind of messing with it, demoing it, renovating it, and now it's about to be done. So, it's the same thing. Now I feel like this next thing is about to be birthed, and it's going to be something massive.
Wow.
That we can really take this thing to the next level, and just maybe even expand something nationwide or whatever. So God continues to give me hunger and vision, and it's like I love what I do, but it's like a growing pain. Like I'm not satisfied yet. There's still a lot more work to do, and there's a lot more to be birthed. God just needs a submitted, obedient vessel to
That's it.
plow through,
That's it. Yeah, that is so good. Wow. Okay, so you gave me a lot to think about there, Tyler, but I want to just back up a hair. So you talk about God fulfilling the desires of your heart, which is Psalm 37:4. It's one of my life verses. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. But let's just flash back to where you were at one point. And again, people can watch the testimony if they haven't already. You're addicted, you're incarcerated, and let's just throw liver cancer on there. And, when we look at things like that with our natural eyes, it's like, well, how are you going to do that? Like, how's that going to happen? That's not possible. And we speak death over situations. But when we know God, that's what this Voices of Recovery is all about, to give people hope of what is possible when you, like you said, submit to God. And wow, things just start clicking, and the vision comes, and He's dropping all these things in you because you see the great need. You see the great need of people. So I just get so excited when I hear your testimony, both as individuals and as a couple, and the testimonies of the people that are coming through this movement, and it's just starting. And we all see the need out there, and we think, wow, I wish I could do something, but you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing the stuff. I mean, it's so incredible. I love it. So as I was kind of preparing for the interview today, I was thinking about Harriet Tubman, and we all know the story, and my husband and I watched her movie recently, and it's just so fantastic. That this woman broke free from slavery, walked to Canada without a GPS or cell phone or map or anything, with people with a bounty on her head, people chasing after her with dogs and such. She makes it to Canada, she makes it to freedom, and then she goes back into the mess to pull people out. That's like so next level, because a lot of people would be like, hey, I'm in freedom, boom, I'm just gonna relax and enjoy my new home, and that's not what she did, and that's not what you did. Like, you could have been like, yep, I've broken free from addiction, like, I'm out, you guys, best of luck to you, go figure it out. But you haven't done that. So is there something inside that compels you to do what you're doing? Because it's something that, you can't take lightly. You've got to almost be called to it in order for it to work. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So in the very beginning, I knew that, I was in a deep hole.
Mm-hmm.
I welcomed death a lot, but when I started to get consistent in my prayer life, and to your point, I think for me, I didn't know what true humility, submitting to God, really being pressed into God, I didn't really know what that looked like until I was just shattered and locked up, and then I just started to make these demonstrations where I believed my heart was sincere. And God, started to speak to me and kind of awaken my spirit, and it was, I think, a little bit into the step work where I was really examining myself and confessing a lot of this junk that I had in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like it removed this dust or this debris from the window between me and God.
Wow.
And so, maybe that's the door to revelation. Like, I don't know, like, not being distracted with relationships or sin and trying to do the right thing kept me in a state of, I would say, purity and righteousness. And then examining my past and confessing some of the junk was like a powerful wiping away of this stuff. So I believe God spoke to me and basically said, it wasn't audible, but it was like, it was cellular, it was like in my cells where I understood it, or in my spirit, like I just knew it to be divine truth, where God was pulling me out or sparing my life to commission me. And the best way I can explain it is like a commissioned NCO in the military, an officer in the military that directs missions, And so I looked at it like that, where I was like being commissioned to raise up a platoon of dudes that were going to go back and pull people out from the war.
Yeah, that's so good. I love it.
So, that's why, like, in the house here, I tell guys the training analogy, because it's like, it's the same thing. Guys are training and learning how to live righteously. They're training and learning how to stay humble. What does humility look like? What does prayer life look like? A lot of people don't know this stuff. You know what I'm saying? A lot of church people and pastors kind of breeze through that and say that, but a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And I know a ton of these guys who are on our radar have been to church or were in Catholic school or whatever, and they don't know none of this stuff.
Wow.
So, when you talk about what does it look like to really be submitted to God, you got to train people in what does that look like. And so, you talk about the Harriet Tubman thing, like, it's kind of like, I agree, it would be cool just to sponsor a guy or two and go live in Shanghai, teach, travel, and do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But, and when them opportunities came, I knew, like, it wasn't about me, you know what I'm saying? If it's always been about God, then I gotta
Wow.
keep it about God.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise I get into the weeds, and for me to be in the weeds too long is death. So
Yeah.
I'm just staying, hanging on to God's hand,
Mm-hmm.
and going with the godly current, you know, and
Yeah.
he continues to just blow me away.
So amazing. I love that. A platoon of dudes. That's gotta be like on the next t-shirt or something, because that's just gold. Okay, I love that. Well, as you were talking about that, Tyler, it's like, I love the fact that God weighs nothing. So you were in the military for a while, and now you're kind of using that to apply to spiritual warfare, and it's just so good. So God weighs nothing. If you're struggling with something, give it to God. He turns coal into diamonds. I love that. All right. So you want to go grab Aaron, and then I'll talk to Jen for a minute, and if he's ready to come in. We are going to have a special guest, a member of the Lit House, who has been here not too long.
I think about a year at least now. I think.
Has he? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Fantastic.
sure. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, he's been here for a while.
All right. Cool. And while Tyler is getting Aaron, do you have anything to say? And
Do I have anything to say? I have
you always
too
have
much to
things.
say, so
You
I-
always
no.
have things to
No.
say.
No, I guess, yeah, I'm just still soaking in everything. he
Living
was
the
just
dream,
talking
yeah.
about. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, he got pretty animated there. Sometimes he can just kind of.
Yeah, sometimes he'll start saying stuff I've never even heard him talk about, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you know,
Wow.
I mean, anyways, but yeah, just the whole, you know, God snatches people out of, you know, exactly what we were just in the thick of,
Yeah.
and, I think it is so true that, you know, he'll allow us to walk through seasons in our life, not because he doesn't love us or because he doesn't have a plan, but because you know, that saying that, you know, whatever the enemy has intended for our harm, God
Right.
means for our good.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, you see that manifest in all different ways. This is just one facet of the diamond
Beautiful.
that's shining, you know.
One facet of the diamond.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron.
Well, hey, Aaron, you got your coffee
All
ready?
right, so
Yes, ma'am.
Aaron's got his coffee. He's ready to go here, and a little impromptu interview. I'll slide over here. So, guys, we're at the Lit House. So, you know, it's not like the at-home studio where, you know, my dog might be outside the room. It's a place where guys live and it's active. So we're just gonna roll with it. And, you know, we sometimes have cars go by that play music, and just this is it. So, Aaron, welcome to Voices of Recovery. You are living in the Lit House.
Yes.
And if you could just share a little bit about what this has meant to you and how it's helping you on your walk, we would love to hear it.
So the Lit House to me, man, it's so encouraging, man. It means the world to me. Because when I was broken and I didn't have anyone else to turn to or anywhere else to go, they took me in, and they made me feel at home. They made me feel welcomed, and they made me feel loved until I could love myself again.
Wow.
And it's always an uplifting experience every day, because you're never by yourself. You
Mhm.
always have your brothers to help you, you know, when you're struggling.
Sure.
So you always got someone to lift you up, speak life into you,
Right.
and without that, I don't know if I'd be here.
Wow.
So
So, Aaron, how is the Lit House and living and sober living like you are now different from maybe other things that you've tried or other programs that you're aware of?
I've been in like a boys' home before,
Mhm.
but the difference was no one there was trying to seek God, or nobody was trying to seek a better life, really.
Right.
It was just kind of a forced situation.
Okay.
So most of the people here, they are trying to seek a new way of life.
Mhm.
You know, get back with their families,
Right.
get back to society, and become you know, a proper member.
Right.
And so I mean, it's just everybody here trying to focus on doing the right things, and you know, and then seeking God, that comes first. Because without having that spiritual awakening,
Yeah.
I mean, I was lost.
Yeah. You said something that really got me. You said that you were with people who loved you until you could love yourself.
Yeah.
That's so huge, right? I mean, if you can't love yourself, why would you put any effort into recovery or anything else, really?
Yeah. foul things and, hurting people that love you.
Yeah.
A hatred, kindles within.
Sure.
And then eventually it begins to war. And,
Wow.
I didn't know love anymore for a
Yeah.
long time. So,
Wow. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here, guys, and I'll give you another opportunity to share anything that's on your heart. So Jen, kind of talk about your role. Your role, obviously, is to come alongside Tyler and support him and what God is calling him to do, which is not anything to take lightly. That's huge, and so thank you for doing that. But yeah, God kind of designed you to just like hang with guys and like be the
I
the
guess
house mom, or I don't know.
I guess I am kind of seeing how what we were just talking about. God will use everything for
Yeah,
good.
He does.
So I've never thought about that till now. Actually, the whole
Yeah.
like even when when I first made that dive into my faith community out of the gay community. Like I said, I was only comfortable around dudes. But I've always
Yeah.
been a tomboy. I've always just jived with guys. So like,
Yeah.
I guess it kind of does make sense that okay, cool.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of dudes around me all the time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, like in that healthy sense, you know what I
Right.
mean? Because I know you can take anything, go from one extreme to the opposite extreme, right?
Yep.
But like having that healthy balance of, I don't know. I mean, guys are my guys, you know what I
Right,
mean? Like
right.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
I don't feel that temptation to lust after all the guys in the house, like
Right.
you know what I mean? Like I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
Yeah.
a lot of other maybe females that struggle with that, but I just feel like they're my brothers,
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
cool. But yes, just helping him out with whatever, everything and anything he needs. But yeah, coming down, hanging out with the guys, getting to talk with them,
Yeah.
and just like hear their stories and where they're at, and just like hearing the progress that they're making. Like I mean,
Yes.
even if I just come down just to run errands, or pick stuff up or whatever, and like it's like that little fuel that just keeps
Right.
like that new fire when you hear a guy with like new fire. It's like, man, like
It's so
it just
exciting.
like gasses you up.
It does.
Like, man, that's awesome. Like you hear how God's working in their life. I love it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. But,
Awesome. How about you, Tyler?
I just feel like, I'm kind of just beginning. We're talking about raising up men, and our website, we got the latest video. We got the latest video on there. I think it's called Stories of Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yes.
And
just testimonies, new testimonies.
testimonies of hope, and so there's just a lot of testimonies coming out of the house of guys that are, starting businesses, being elevated, stepping out, getting apartments, getting their kids back, getting their families back, and so that's going to continue to happen. We're going to continue to launch men out into
Yes.
the city here to go and do likewise, and I feel like in 2021, God's going to open the door for something massive, I'm just going to call it forth.
Speak
There
that
we go.
out.
Yeah.
God's about to drop, a large facility our way in the Cincinnati area, so we can take this thing to the next level. Like I said, and within days we'll have 3 houses up and running, over 30 beds, but there is tons more men out there lost and broken that need
Right.
a word, that need God, that need the same opportunity that we had, the
Right.
accountability, the people that will love them until they can love themselves. And so I feel like the work we're doing is being blessed, it's multiplying, and I think God's going to be faithful to take this thing forward. So
Absolutely.
if anybody's interested, they can go to our website. It's www.thelitmovement.org, and check us out.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will definitely link that to the page after the interview so people can check out what you're doing, and I'd love to see a lot of people donate because, guys, look, we all know that the drug epidemic is huge. We all know that there are a lot of people stuck in messes, and we all want to do something about it, but we can't all do what they're doing, right? But you can give to people who are doing this stuff. And so I encourage you to check it out, make a donation today. And Tyler, you said a word that kind of was in my mind too, and that was multiplication. That's how the kingdom of God builds, right? It's like 100 times, 100-fold what was sown. And now you're raising these guys up who are now going to go raise other people up. And that's how it works. So we're going to get this thing done. Aaron, thank you for joining us today. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say, or are you ready to exit stage left here?
I'll let you go.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. God bless you on your journey. And I just want to thank Tyler and Jen so much for doing this interview. They've done the individual interviews, and I've really been wanting to have them both together. And I want to thank the audience for watching this episode of Voices of Recovery. We're creating a safe place where people can go on their journey with God to get hope and encouragement. If you're new to our page, give us a like or follow. And if you feel led, share out this message, because I'm sure there's somebody on your page who needs to hear the hope that these two amazing individuals have. So thank you guys so much. Bless the Lit movement, and thank you to our audience for watching, and we'll see you next time on Voices of Recovery. Bye-bye.